Christian Divyne has a bit on here in which he says a very unimportant downside to socialism is that it ruins Jay-Z. Nothing. That's hilarious. I know it's not an attack Christian Divyne video, but I want to kind of use that to talk a little bit about some of what I'm seeing in regards to people rehashing Colin Kaepernick's exit from the NFL, Jay-Z's deal with the NFL. And this is mostly because Nessa, Colin Kaepernick's wife, has sort of added on to the conversations that people are having that were also generated by the issues that Nicki Minaj is having with Jay-Z, which we're all trying to get a better understanding of. But the point is here is that, for someone like me, I think I lean more left in my ideologies. Like I do believe that when people say things like, oh, there's no such thing as an ethical billionaire, I think they're closer to the truth. More so because even if you're not a billionaire or you're just a multimillionaire who's chasing the billionaires, I just think in that quest for that amount of capital, there will be casualties. And that's just how I look at it, whether it's, you want to look at it from a figurative aspect or a literal physical aspect, right? People going hungry. Now, which is why I'm also an advocate, and people say, well, you're probably more liberal than leftist, of having common sense regulations, having fair taxations, because I don't expect really rich people, really ambitious people to not just keep bulldozing forward, right? So the idea is Nessa's talked about, some of the things that Colin might have faced, and she's comparing it to some of the things that Nicki Minaj is saying. Now, I'm going to just kind of shoot some articles up here that, Jay-Z and his team would probably use to disprove this and say that Jay-Z lobbied for Colin Kaepernick to come back. But I think some of us, the audience, do remember sort of like the punchline, that was going around where Jay says we're past kneeling, right? So let's look at the rest of that from three perspectives, where I think no matter how you look at it, even if you want to use an excuse of capitalism or ambitions or fighting for your people, you still will unintentionally make Colin Kaepernick, who was a millionaire himself but was sacrificing things, a casualty, right? So the first one, the capital perspective. So in Nessa's rant that I saw on XXL, she talked about the $5 million the NFL paid Jay-Z and Roc Nation. I want to point out that for some people, if you don't put two and two together, you might think the NFL was like, here's $5 million, get rid of Colin. Not necessarily. That was a $25 million deal, $5 million per year that was signed in 2019 for the Roc Nation to produce the NFL show. My spidey senses go off though, because I'm like, oh, y'all doing everything you spend your PR around, right? So of course, what is it, quid pro quo, right? You produce our show, you make money. You see that? That's capitalism. You produce our show, you make money. On the back end, okay, on the back end, you're producing a show that's filled with more majority black entertainers. People feel more comfortable with our product, right? So the second piece is ambition, right? So someone like Jay-Z is ambitious, right? Wants to be the Super Bowl halftime show is a big deal. That's a big deal for his name, big deal for his company, and moves his company forward. Now, the problem is the third piece, which is fighting for your people. And I see this all the time, right? Because when I think about Colin Kaepernick and what he did and what he had going on and the methods that he took, and we have to look at ourselves as people, right? Because the first two things I mentioned, regulation, taxation, covers that, right? If we do it right, which is why I like talking politics on here. Regulation meaning, if the NFL can't do X, Y, Z because we have the right rules in place to not do X, Y, Z, and they can't fire certain people or blackball certain people. That takes care of Colin Kaepernick. Capitalism, like, okay, well, if you're going to make $25 million off the NFL, as long as we tax you properly, the roads are okay, kind of evens out. But the third piece, which is the fighting for your people, the sort of, activist portion, is so fascinating to me, right? Because in this case, Jay-Z fan or not, this is where there's going to be some clashing. Colin Kaepernick, millionaire, says, I'm kneeling, I'm standing up for police brutality, right? Took a while for some people to get on board. A lot of people didn't. The owners pushed back. Iron fist. And for us as the people, okay, let's just go with, minorities in America, specifically black people in America, that for what Colin Kaepernick is talking about. And if he's fighting for us, right, we got to be able to look at, we're still watching the product. A lot of us were still watching the product. There are some people that said, I'm never watching the NFL again. I salutations to them, right? But if you have other radicals like Colin Kaepernick who are willing to, put everything online, and they see, oh, look, the people that I'm fighting for, they don't care. They're still watching it. What does that do to them? Now, I know some of you, I've had people say this to me, they push back. I didn't ask Colin Kaepernick to do that for me. Some of you disagree. I'm black and I don't think it would, I get it, right? But now let's do the flip side, which is a form of activism that I see Jay-Z use a lot and capitalists use a lot, which is representation to them means more. Okay? And I think someone like Jay-Z, the way he looks at fighting for his people, even though he's a billionaire, is I got to get us in the room. And I'm willing to do whatever I got to do to get us in the room, to have a voice, to shake the room the way that we want, right? That's more of a, kind of bootstrap, centrist kind of ideology, right? But that's his way. Now, in terms of people talking about smear campaigns, that takes us back to point one, which I think is good old PR. People are playing PR games. The billionaires do it better than everyone because they got the most resources and the most money. The millionaires can try, right? NFL owners, same boat as him. They're the next level, but they next level billionaires. And at the end of the day, the main point here is that it's going to be up to us as an audience to either say we can, compartmentalize, or we can just play the game, right? We can just keep playing the game of that's entertainment, right? This is policy. Be entertained by Jay-Z, but always root for policies and regulations that keeps him in check, okay? Gets us fair taxation to keep our society where it's supposed to be. And one last thing to point out, yes, I do remember Colin Kaepernick got the settlement for the NFL, but is that an even trade for what he could have been able to do if he was able to stay in the NFL and was able to either keep doing something, maybe not kneeling, but symbolic enough that would promote and continue the conversation of police brutality. You look at something like, breast cancer awareness in NFL every month. Yeah, it's all symbolic, but it sparks a conversation and raises a lot of money around breast cancer. So there's that.